When your beagle starts sleeping, like 14 hours a day, and just completely ignores the doorbell, your first instinct is probably panic.
Oh, absolutely. You think they're shutting down.
Right. But what if they aren't shutting down at all? Like, what if they are simply upgrading how they process the world? Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are analyzing a really comprehensive guide on senior dog care.
And we're focusing specifically on the later life stages of the beagle.
Exactly. And the mission today isn't to talk about winding down or, bracing for the inevitable end. We're completely reframing a dog's senior years to show you that an aging hound never truly stops exploring.
They really don't.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because I look at entering a dog's senior years a lot like owning a beloved vintage car, you know? You don't just park a classic car in the garage and throw a tarp over it just because it has some miles on the odometer.
Right, you still take it out for drives.
You still drive it, but you absolutely change the kind of road trips you take. Like, you skip the off-roading, you avoid the massive potholes so you don't ruin the suspension.
Yeah.
And you prioritize, routine care, premium fuel, and smooth, scenic roads so you can just enjoy the ride.
I love that analogy. And honestly, the fundamental shift in mindset you need as an owner isn't about mourning the sports car you used to have.
Yeah.
It's about moving from being a passive observer of a pet's aging process to becoming an active, thoughtful adapter of their environment.
The active adapter.
Yeah, you are modifying the physical and sensory world to fit a new biological pace. But, doing that effectively requires a really deep understanding of what's actually happening under the hood, starting with when this transition actually occurs.
Which is fascinating because looking at our sources, there isn't like a magical 8th birthday where a beagle wakes up and is suddenly classified as a senior.
No, not at all. The transition into the senior years is dictated entirely by biology, not chronology.
Okay.
The number on the calendar is a rough estimate. But cellular aging, what we call senescence, is highly individualized.
So it varies dog to dog.
Exactly. As an owner, you are looking for the shift from normal, gentle wear and tear to abnormal clinical signs. So normal aging looks like a slight loss in muscle tone or taking an extra beat to stand up after a long nap.
Right, just kind of slow to get going.
Yeah, and that happens because the synovial fluid inside their joints literally becomes more viscous over time.
Wow.
It takes a moment of movement to warm up and lubricate the cartilage.
So it literally is just the chassis getting a little stiff in the cold.
Exactly.
But, distinguishing that normal morning stiffness from a real warning sign seems incredibly difficult considering how stoic dogs are. I mean, we know they mask pain as an evolutionary trait, but how do you actually spot it if they aren't crying out?
Well, you have to look for subtle behavioral shifts governed by their sympathetic nervous system. In the wild, showing pain makes you a target, right?
Sure.
It risks your access to pack resources, so their biology actively suppresses vocalizing. When a dog is experiencing chronic pain like osteoarthritis, their body is constantly releasing stress hormones. They aren't going to whimper because vocalizing doesn't alleviate a continuous ache. Instead, pain manifests as active withdrawal or guarding.
What does that look like in daily life?
You might notice a previously cuddly beagle suddenly shifting their weight away when you pet their lower back. Or they might adopt a slightly rigid, quiet demeanor. They are physically guarding the inflamed area from external pressure.
Wait, okay, I need to stop you there. Because if my beagle is sleeping 14 hours a day and acting totally unbothered by things that used to excite them, my immediate thought is that they are in pain or incredibly sick.
Yeah, that's a common worry.
How is a massive increase in sleep not a giant red flag?
Because increased sleep is a biological necessity for an aging mammal. At a cellular level, their mitochondria, the powerhouses of their cells, are simply less efficient at producing energy than they used to be.
Oh.
The body requires significantly more downtime to repair muscle tissue, clear out cellular waste, and just replenish energy stores for daily functions. So a dog sleeping 14 hours isn't inherently failing. They are actively regenerating.
But how do you know they're just regenerating and not, actually depressed or in chronic pain?
You evaluate the entire pattern of behavior when they are awake.
Okay.
If a beagle sleeps deeply, but then wakes up, eagerly eats their breakfast, greets you with relaxed body language, and, actively engages with a toy for 10 minutes,
Then they're fine.
then the sleep is just normal physiological maintenance. The clinical red flag is when increased sleep is paired with anorexia, or if they remain completely withdrawn and disinterested in their environment even after waking up.
Right.
That points to a systemic medical issue rather than just a low battery.
Okay, so if they are regenerating during those long naps, we really need to talk about how they are spending their energy when they are awake.
Yes, absolutely.
Because our sources point out a really dangerous assumption, like the idea that once a dog gets old and stiff, you should just let them rest and stop exercising them entirely to protect their joints.
Complete rest is one of the fastest ways to accelerate physical decline in a senior dog.
Oh, wait, really?
Oh, yeah. Joints are stabilized by a biological scaffolding of ligaments, tendons, and surrounding muscle. When a dog stops moving, that stabilizing muscle tissue atrophies rapidly.
Oh, so they lose the support system.
Exactly. As the muscle mass decreases, the physical load is transferred directly onto the joint itself, which dramatically increases bone-on-bone friction.
Ouch.
Yeah, it actively worsens osteoarthritis. The clinical phrase is motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion. I like that.
Movement physically stimulates the production of that joint fluid we talked about earlier.
So we don't stop the movement. We adapt it to keep the scaffolding strong without overloading the joint.
Precisely. Shorter, slower walks where they dictate the pace.
And this adapted movement has to extend into the house, right? Like things like ramps for the car or non-slip rugs. And we aren't just doing this because they can't jump anymore. We are trying to prevent specific micro-injuries.
Exactly. A beagle jumping out of an SUV absorbs an immense amount of concussive force through their front shoulders and carpal joints.
Right.
Over years, this repetitive micro-impact degrades the articular cartilage. Similarly, a senior dog slipping on a hardwood floor isn't just a clumsy moment.
It's more serious than that.
Yeah, their aging, stabilizing muscles can't correct the slip fast enough, leading to severe soft tissue tearing, like a cranial cruciate ligament rupture. Non-flip rugs and ramps remove the environmental friction so they can navigate safely.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the mechanical stress on those joints is directly multiplied by what's happening in their gut.
Yes.
It goes back to our vehicle analogy. If you have a plane that used to fly cross-country routes, but now it's only doing short, low-altitude commuter hops.
You don't need as much fuel.
Right. You can't keep pumping the exact same volume of high-performance jet fuel into the tanks. If you do, that unused fuel has to go somewhere, and in a plane, excess weight puts massive structural stress on the landing gear.
That is a perfect analogy. The exact same mechanism happens in a beagle, but the structural stress is biological. As they age, their basal metabolic rate drops. If you keep feeding them the high-calorie puppy diet while their physical output has decreased, those unused calories are converted into fat. But fat isn't just inert, extra weight.
What do you mean?
Adipose tissue is biologically active. It secretes inflammatory hormones called adipokines.
Wait, so the fat itself is actually attacking the joints?
Adipokines actively degrade cartilage and promote systemic inflammation throughout the entire body.
Oh my God.
So an overweight senior dog isn't just carrying a heavier backpack that mechanically stresses their hips. Their own fat cells are chemically breaking down their joint tissue.
That is terrifying, but it perfectly explains why weight management is critical. But how do you balance this? We just established that they need muscle to support the joints.
Right.
But we need to cut calories to stop the fat from chemically attacking the cartilage. So if an owner just arbitrarily cuts their dog's food portion in half, aren't they just starving away that vital muscle mass?
That is the exact trap many owners fall into. Just making the dog lighter by starving them of nutrients leads to muscle wasting, which brings us right back to unstable joints.
Right, the scaffolding collapses.
Exactly. You need to pivot to a scientifically formulated senior diet that restricts overall caloric density to prevent the accumulation of those inflammatory fat cells,
Oh, okay.
while maintaining or even increasing highly digestible protein levels to preserve that lean muscle mass.
And tracking this means regular body condition scoring, right? Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't just be staring at a scale every day. You should be using your hands to feel their ribs without pressing hard through a thick layer of fat.
Yes, feeling for the ribs.
And making sure they still have a visible waistline when viewed from above.
Hands-on evaluation is the most accurate metric because the scale does not differentiate between losing dangerous fat and losing vital muscle.
So we've adapted the mechanical scaffolding and the metabolic fuel, but the environment they're navigating is also changing because the sensory data their brain receives is shifting. Vision and hearing decline in older beagles is practically a given.
It is. And the mechanics of that decline are important to recognize so you can respond properly. With vision, we often see nuclear sclerosis.
What is that exactly?
It's a hardening of the lens fibers that creates a hazy bluish appearance in the eye. It scatters light, meaning their depth perception suffers, especially in dim environments.
Oh, so that's why they might hesitate at a staircase.
Exactly. They literally cannot gauge the drop. With hearing, the tiny hair cells in the inner ear degrade over time, typically resulting in the loss of high-frequency sounds first.
So they might not hear the high-pitched squeak of a toy. Or they startle if you walk up behind them simply because they didn't hear your footsteps.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where the environmental adaptation really kicks in. Like, you start pairing hand signals with your voice cues, leveraging their intact visual processing, and you stop rearranging the living room furniture so they can rely on their mental map of the house.
And this raises an important question about what happens when the mental map itself starts to fail. The sources heavily emphasize monitoring for canine cognitive dysfunction.
Like changes in their spatial awareness, getting stuck behind doors or suddenly pacing the halls at 3 in the morning.
Yes, but the critical guardrail here is that an owner cannot self-diagnose cognitive dysfunction.
Why not?
Because what looks like dementia pacing at night, panting, staring at walls, can actually be the presentation of severe unmanaged joint pain.
Wait, really? Pain looks like dementia?
It can. Or even a metabolic crisis like kidney failure. True cognitive dysfunction involves the accumulation of beta amyloid proteins in the brain, which physically disrupts neural pathways.
Okay.
A veterinarian must rule out physiological pain and organ failure before diagnosing a neurological decline.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of their brain, I want to tackle a pervasive myth. People see their dog physically slowing down and assume their cognitive drive is also shutting off.
Yes.
There's this idea that senior dogs are too tired to learn, so owners just stop training them or engaging them in new activities.
What's fascinating here is that as the physical body's capacity for intense exertion drops, the demand for cognitive engagement actually spikes.
Really?
Yeah. The brain requires stimulation to maintain neural plasticity. If you stop engaging them, you actually accelerate their cognitive decline.
So what does this all mean for a scent hound like a beagle? If they can't run for 3 miles anymore, do they just sit around bored?
Not if you leverage their primary operating system. The olfactory bulb in a beagle's brain, the area dedicated to processing smells, is massive compared to a human's. Sniffing is the ultimate low-impact, high-yield exercise.
Because processing those scents burns actual neural energy.
Incredible amounts of neural energy. When a beagle is intensely decoding a scent trail, they are utilizing rapid, shallow sniffing to pull odor molecules over hundreds of millions of olfactory receptors.
Wow.
And their brain is simultaneously categorizing and analyzing all this complex data.
So doing 20 minutes of targeted scent work like hiding treats in a snuffle mat, or doing a slow, unstructured walk where they just sniff grass can tire a senior dog out.
Oh, absolutely. It provides more emotional satisfaction than a 2-mile run with absolutely zero concussive strain on their joints.
It's incredible to think that letting them sniff a tree for 5 minutes is actually a rigorous mental workout.
It really is.
But, you know, managing this entire ecosystem, the joint supplements, the caloric restriction, the cognitive engagement, it requires a teammate. You can't just guess your way through a senior dog's medical needs.
No, you can't. The cornerstone of senior care is the veterinary partnership. Specifically, shifting from annual exams to biannual exams.
Every 6 months.
Yes. A senior dog's physiology is highly volatile. 6 months represents a significant percentage of their lifespan.
Yeah, a lot can happen in 6 months. We aren't just looking for a general checkup. We need deep blood panels to see what's happening before the dog shows symptoms.
We are looking for early metabolic markers.
Yeah.
For instance, running an SDMA test can detect early-stage kidney dysfunction long before the traditional blood markers elevate.
Or before they start drinking excessive amounts of water.
Exactly. Catching thyroid shifts or liver enzyme elevations early allows for subtle dietary interventions that can extend their healthy years significantly.
And this directly counters the most toxic mindset highlighted in our sources. The defeatist attitude that, well, they're old, it's just part of aging, nothing can be done.
Right.
We aren't trying to cure aging, but we have incredible tools to treat the symptoms of it.
Modern veterinary medicine provides targeted pain management protocols, injectables that modify joint fluid, and neuroprotective diets.
It's amazing.
When you evaluate a senior dog's quality of life, you are looking at a holistic equation. Mobility plus appetite plus social engagement.
Okay.
If any one of those pillars drops, there's usually a medical intervention that can restore the balance.
And alongside the medical interventions, we have to provide environmental anchors. The sources stress the immense power of routine for a senior dog.
Routine is vital.
Consistent feeding times, predictable walk routes, a structured day. But I struggle with this a bit.
Why is that?
Well, we are talking about a beagle, a dog biologically driven to track dynamic environments and find new scents. If you lock them into a rigid, highly predictable routine every single day, doesn't their life just become incredibly dull?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of their failing senses, we realize that predictability does not equal boredom.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When a dog's vision becomes hazy and their hearing is muffled, the world naturally becomes a more chaotic, unpredictable place.
That makes sense.
Routine acts as a psychological anchor. It heavily reduces the cognitive load required to navigate their day.
So it offsets the anxiety of not being able to see or hear perfectly.
Exactly. The adventure hasn't disappeared. It has simply changed scale. For a senior beagle, they don't need a brand new hiking trail to feel stimulated.
What do I need?
The adventure is a slow, methodical walk through a deeply familiar park. They know exactly where the trees are, so they feel physically secure, but they are analyzing the microscopic dynamic changes in the scents left by other animals overnight.
Oh, wow.
It's taking a gentle drive with the window cracked just an inch to catch the complex odors on the breeze. They find infinite complexity within the safe boundaries of a predictable space.
The adventure changes scale. I love that. So to wrap this deep dive up, what we're really talking about is preserving the core identity of the beagle. The curious, scent-driven hound whose ancestors tracked through misty fields, that fundamental spirit remains entirely intact in their senior years.
It absolutely does.
The vintage car is still on the road, taking in the scenery like never before. Caring for them isn't about bracing for an inevitable end. It's the profound act of lovingly modifying the world to fit their new, gentle pace, ensuring they navigate their twilight years with absolute comfort and dignity.
I want to leave you with one final thought to consider. We humans tend to measure aging entirely through the lens of physical limitation. We measure our decline by the words we can no longer read, the sounds we can no longer hear, or the physical speeds we can no longer reach.
Right.
But you must remember how a beagle actually experiences reality. Their primary interface with the universe is olfactory, and their nose, that astonishing complex apparatus, is the one capability that remains incredibly sharp until the very end. Therefore, in the mind of a senior beagle, their world hasn't shrunk at all. Through their nose, the world remains just as vivid, just as infinite, and just as rich with information as the day they were born. Perhaps we have a lot to learn from them about what it truly means to age without losing our sense of wonder.